Excuse me, everybody. Wanted to get started if we can. Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullah. My name is Imam Adeel. I'm the Muslim chaplain at Trinity College and also Wesleyan University. And welcome you to Star Wars and Islam. This is the first time I'm doing this lecture, but not the first time I'm doing this type of lecture. First one I tried was the Born Islamically, which is about the Born identity, the Born trilogy. And then the second one was Hunger Games in Islam, and this is Star Wars in Islam. But this is by far my favorite movie out of all those three, so I'm really excited about it. I want to do a quick introduction to Islam, but first I want to thank Trinity College, MSA, and the Mill for helping out with the presentation today and giving us a space and working all the logistics, and the committee that worked so hard to make this event happen. As far as Islam, Islam is submission to the will of God. It's based on 5 pillars, which first one is Shahada, to bear witness that there is no God worthy of worship other than God, and that Muhammad is the messenger of God, to pray 5 times a day, to give fixed charity, 2.5% of your wealth, to visit the house of God for Hajj in Mecca, and to fast in Ramadan for 30 days. And then the articles of faith, to believe in God, the messengers, the angels, the final day, the holy scriptures, to believe in destiny, the good and bad both come from him, and the resurrection. And so, giving a little general to help understand the lecture a little better. And the 2 sources that I'll be talking about mostly are from the Quran, which is believed to be the book that was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad from the angel Gabriel from God. And the hadith, which are the actions, sayings, or tacit approval of the Prophet Muhammad. May God's peace and blessings be upon him. And this event's also in collaboration with Dean Campus. It's a nonprofit that I work with that's to establish, our mission is to establish Muslim chaplains on college campuses that are dedicated to providing spiritual counseling, research-based Islamic education, and fostering interfaith relations. So, background. How many of you have seen Star Wars? All of them. Okay, there's 2 hands in the back. Okay. All right, good. So, background information. If you haven't seen it, it's okay. I'll explain. So, it's the story of someone named Anakin Skywalker. He was a young boy. He grew up to become a Jedi, and then he got life problems, and then he got seduced by the dark side of the Force. And then he eventually, we'll talk about it. But so it's a story about basically about one person, and it revolves around him. Repentance is a very big concept in Islam. The belief that we commit sins, we commit errors, but then we return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And God says in the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, except for those who repent and correct themselves and make evidence what they concealed, those I will accept their repentance, and I am the accepting of repentance and merciful. Now, George Lucas himself, the creator, if you like, of Star Wars, says that the villain, or the main villain, is not Darth Vader, who you see the pictures of in the big, the black, outfit, and he says it's Palpatine, who is the devil, as he describes him. And Islam, Muslims are in constant battle with the devil. The Jedi being the good guys, wearing robes, kind of like this, and they're in constant battle with the Sith, who are the bad guys, right? And God says in the Quran, or Muslims call him Allah, in Surah Al-An'am, إِنَّهُ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌّ مُبِينٌ. Do not follow the footsteps of Satan. Indeed, he is to you a clear enemy. So this concept is a good parallel. Okay, also we have the concept of Sufism in Islam, which is Islamic mysticism, spirituality. And there is a concept of a master, a sheikh or murshid, and the student or murid. And the relationship of these two is very similar to the Jedi master and the apprentice, the Padawan. And in that, once you start studying with one master, you're pretty much locked with that master, that relationship. And that kind of goes throughout the Star Wars trilogy, Star Wars movie series. the first trilogy and second trilogy as well. And one of the scholars said that the entire Islam can be brought into one maxim, and that is to enjoin good and forbid evil. And that's what Allah says in the Quran, in Surah Al-Imran, to enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong. Now, what's very interesting that I found out doing the research was that George Lucas had contacted members of the Habibiyya Sufi order in Berkeley, California, in order to research for Star Wars. And there was a piece by Mahmoud Shelton who talked about the Sufi ideas of spiritual chivalry, futuwat, and they have parallels in the Jedi teaching, where they quote, they encourage adherence to training both physically and spiritually for their own personal edification and enhance their knowledge and abilities in the struggle. Another interesting one is the silsila, which is a chain, where it indicates the sheikh's lineage of mystical learning, so where they draw their spiritual authority from. So if you're like a really big Star Wars person, you'll get this next example very well. So you have Anakin Skywalker, who learns from Obi-Wan Kenobi, who learns from Qui-Gon Jinn, who learns from Count Dooku, who learns from Yoda, right? And that's like a chain, a silsila, right? Now, another interesting fact is that Tatooine, who's from Tatooine? It's an open question. Anakin, right? Who else is from Tatooine? Luke, right? So they're both from Tatooine. There's actually a place in Tunisia. It's I may be pronouncing it wrong, but it has a similar name, like Tatooine or something like that. Yeah, Tatooine, right? So, and he's from Tunisia, by the way. So this is like some street cred, right? So similarly, the Prophet of Islam, ﷺ, he lived in the desert, where there was, troubles in the tribal system that he had to work with. Now we go back to the concept of the devil, right, in Islam, and that's someone who is whispering to mankind to do evil deeds. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah An-Nas, الَّذِي يُوَسْوِسُ فِي صُدُورِ النَّاسِ, who whispers evil into the chest of mankind. So it's constant whispering to do evil and to go into bad things. It's also a very constant theme that we'll talk about when we go into Palpatine and his being a senator and a chancellor and then the emperor. Now, Jedi Knights. So some of them have beards, like Obi-Wan. He has a beard, pretty much entire. And the first one, I don't think he has a beard. Then part 2 onwards, he's sporting a beard. They wear very similar outfits to these kind. They have hoods and they have brown. And then the Sith, the bad guys, usually wear like a black way. And they have a code of ethics and honor. The life of a Jedi is similar to the life of a Muslim, in that you have to give up some of the things in this world, certain temptations, live a life of honor and service, and not one of the nafs or desires, right? And you have to constantly do good deeds. So have faith and good deeds. It's not just about believing in God and like not doing any good. And it's not just doing good without believing in God. You have to have both. And Allah says in Surah Al-Asr, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ, except those who believe and do righteous deeds and enjoin others towards the truth and towards patience. Okay, now, episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So now I'm going to go through each movie now. And I promise it won't take long. It's under an hour, God willing. Don't worry about it. But it goes quickly, so stay with me. I'll check in with you guys, make sure you're still with me. So episode 1 is The Phantom Menace. It's like the United Nations type Star Wars. There's government, there's trade routes, there's taxes. All these things are going on. Anakin, he grew up as a what? As a slave, right? So he didn't have much respect. He didn't have a father to guide him. It was his mother who was kind of working with him. She had become a slave. Why? Does anyone know why she became a slave? I'm sorry?
Poverty?
She was gambling. She lost, I think, in pod racing, some kind of a bet to the owner. So Anakin had a dream that he was a Jedi, that he would come back and he would free all the slaves. So already at this early age, he has these strong ambitions. He had a strong attachment to his mother, who in many ways was like a father to him as well, because he didn't have a father. Now there was a Jedi master, right? Qui-Gon Jinn. Okay, so now we have right now we're focusing on two Jedis. Qui-Gon Jinn is the master, and Obi-Wan, who is the apprentice, right? And then we have Anakin, who's eventually going to do it, but he's too small right now. So Qui-Gon in this, it kind of mentions that eventually when you gamble, you lose. And this is something that is forbidden in Islam, to drink and also to gamble. And they're mentioned in the same verse in Surah Al-Baqarah, where God says, "Yas'alunaka anil khamri wal maisri." Right? They ask you about wine and gambling. Say that it is a great sin, ithmun kabirun, that there's a great sin in this. But there is benefit for people. So like, if you drink a little wine, it may be good for your heart. But the problem is that the sin is greater than the benefit. Some people can control that drinking, some of them can't. And they end up doing domestic violence and end up getting in car accidents and types of things like that. Similarly, in gambling, you may win something, but also can cause a lot of problems as well. So, now Yoda, you can say, is like the Grand Mufti of Star Wars. You know, he is like the biggest, like, you know, sheikh, imam, Islamic, you know, whatever. He knows the most out of all of them. He's old. Everyone respects him. Master Yoda, you know. And throughout the series, you see how smart he is and how wise he is. But he says something like, it's hard to see. Okay, so he talks in a way that's not like coherent. Like his grammar doesn't work, right? So he'll say like, hard to see the dark side is. You know, so it won't be like the dark side is hard to see. He'll switch up the words, you know. And God says in the Quran, in Surah Al-Araf, that the devil, he's quoting the devil, who says that then I will come to them from before them and from behind them and on their right and on their left. So it's a constant struggle that we go through. He also talks about the methodology of the dark side. This is Yoda, right? So fear, anger, hate, suffering, this, God bless you, leads to the dark side. There is a principle in Islamic jurisprudence known as Sad ad-Daraya, and that means to block the means to evil. So before the evil happens, you try to stop it before actually getting to the actual evil. Don't wait till the last minute where it's already evil. Just stop it before it happens. Something to keep in mind as we go forward. So now we have, who do we have now? We have Anakin, right? Who's the little boy. We have Obi-Wan, who's the what? Apprentice. Good. And we have Qui-Gon, who is the Jedi Master, right? So now they're trying to take Anakin to convince the Jedi Council, who's the Shura, right? The body of consultation for the Muslims, if you like, when they make decisions. They go there and they say, we want to train Anakin. He's the chosen one. He's going to bring balance to the Force. He's the man. And they say, he's too old. And he was young, but he already had attachment to his mother. So they were afraid that this is a problem. And so Mace Windu, who is one of the top Jedis of the Jedi, and Anakin, he says this, and Anakin gives him a look, starts squinting at him. So already there's some tension with Mace and Anakin at a very early age. And then the council, Qui-Gon says, I'll train the boy. But then the council says, you already have apprentice and Obi-Wan, right? You can't have two. The code forbids it, right? And Obi-Wan also mentions to Qui-Gon, stick to the code. If you stick to the code, you would have been on the council already. So as Muslims, we also have a code that we work with, right? In Islamic law, and some can call it Sharia, right? Which means a path of water to a bigger body of water, right? And so in Jewish law, you have halakha, which is similar. And that code helps us stay in line in our goals as worshiping God. Now, what do the Jedi say when they leave? When they leave each other?
May the Force be with you.
Mm-hmm. May the Force be with you, right? And what do Muslims say when we leave each other? Nobody knows?
Peace be upon you.
Yeah, but so peace be upon you, right? Assalamu alaikum, right? And that means may God's peace be upon you. It's interesting to note that. Now, something else we have to mention is that in the Phantom Menace, the first one, Anakin meets a young girl who's older than him, a lot older than him actually, but he kind of has a crush on her, right? And her name is
Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman. Yeah, Natalie Portman, but Amidala Padme, right? And so he gives her like a little gift at the end of the movie, and to remember him by. So they develop like a friendship in the first one. So now we're gonna fast forward to the end of this movie. Right? Past all the details that wasn't that good. So Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon are walking with the delegation. Right, the Queen is there, and the Sith Lord. Sith Lord is the bad guys, right? Palpatine, he's a Sith Lord, but nobody knows about it, except for Darth Maul. So Darth Maul is the apprentice of Darth. What's his name? Emperor's name. Darth Sidious. Darth Sidious, right? So Palpatine is Darth Sidious. So he's the apprentice. Darth Maul takes off his horn, takes off his hood. He has these horns, red face. His lightsaber is dual. It comes out this way and comes out that way. So everybody's like panicking. So Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, they fight Darth Maul. It's 2-on-1. And they still get beat up pretty bad. And there's one scene where Qui-Gon, the master, and Darth Maul are fighting 1-on-1. And they get stuck for a minute. And what does Qui-Gon do at that moment? What does he do right then when they get stuck? There's like a red wall in between. Yeah. He meditates, right? So he sits down and he just starts meditating and starts breathing. And Darth Maul's just like waiting for that door to open so he can start fighting again. And actually, this is one of the prophetic anecdotes of anger. The Prophet Muhammad said, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when one of you becomes angry while standing, he should sit down. If the anger leaves him, well and good. Otherwise, he should lie down. Right? And this is a great method. You don't have to be Muslim, but it's a really good method to get rid of your anger, is to just change your position. Okay. So meanwhile, Anakin is playing like on his little ship thing, and he's blowing up reactors, and he's already good at flying. And these are skill sets that the Jedi see in him. Qui-Gon dies. Darth Maul kills him. All right. Then Obi-Wan comes and he beats Darth Maul. Okay. Now there's a problem. Anakin has gotten permission to become a Jedi. Qui-Gon was going to be his master. Qui-Gon's dead. So what happens now? What happens now? Obi-Wan wants to train, and he promises Qui-Gon that I'll train Anakin. But Yoda says, no, you're not going to do that. You can be a Jedi master, but you're not going to train Anakin. And then Yoda says, Qui-Gon's defiance I sense in you, that you need not, right? But then that's something that we all instill. Like from my sheikh that I studied with, my imam, I have certain characteristics about him that are inside, that are still with me now, that I take and I just in my regular life when I talk about things, especially about Islam. At the end of the movie, Palpatine tells young Skywalker, the kid, we will watch your career with great interest. Right? He's already starting to build up his ego, which is one of the ways of the attack. So, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Now, you have a Senate, right? Galactic Senate at this point. And there's a separatist movement trying to separate, and it's led by Count Dooku, who is now the next Sith apprentice. So Darth Sidious, the Emperor-to-be, is still there, Palpatine, and then you have Count Dooku. So the Jedi are recruiting an army, and now the Queen of Naboo, Padme, is now a senator. Now Palpatine tells Anakin. Anakin's a lot older now. He's like maybe 19. Is that fair? 20? Okay? And Palpatine tells Anakin, you are the greatest Jedi I have ever met. You will be invincible, greater than Master Yoda. So he's puffing him up, getting him ready, the whole time. Anakin is set to bodyguard Amidala, Padme, right? And so, but at this point, he already has a crush on her. So he starts physically and verbally professing his romantic interest in her. And she's like, whoa, are you all allowed to love? This is kind of weird because you're a Jedi. And then, Islamically, our clergy are allowed to have to marry. That is something that is in the religion, but Jedi cannot because of an attachment. So that's a problem for him. here's where it gets kind of intense. Anakin has a nightmare that his mom is in trouble. And so he goes back to Tatooine to find her. And he finds her basically being she's almost dead. And eventually she dies. So he gets so upset. That he kills the Sand People, Tusken Rangers, and he kills who else among them? Who does he kill?
The kids and the women.
He kills the women and he kills the children. And he says, I hate them. And then Yoda starts like touching his chest. He's like, he can sense something happened, just a lot of pain and suffering. And then Anakin says, I want to be all powerful. I want to be the most powerful Jedi. So powerful to stop people from dying. And Yoda, he's smart. He doesn't see the whole thing, but he picks up on some of the things that are happening right now. And he can sense Palpatine. And he senses Anakin's steps where he's going. So now we're going to fast forward again. End of the movie. Same reasons. Yoda and Anakin and Obi-Wan are going to fight Count Dooku. Right? Count Dooku beats up both of them. I think chops off Anakin's hand too, right? And then beats up both of them. Then Yoda comes in and kind of shows him who's boss. But then Count Dooku runs away. And then Yoda says, the shroud of the dark side has fallen. Anakin and Padme, throughout the movie, they start falling in love and they get married. End of the movie. It's like a big Bollywood scene. Like they go and like the grass and then they get married. It's like a, yeah. So the problem that's already happened is to note is that Anakin started killing everybody and he got married to Padme, which was against the Jedi code. This is a problem. If they found out, they would expel him. So it's a secret marriage, a secret relationship. Now, Revenge of the Sith, number 3. Story of Obi-Wan and Anakin are going to save Palpatine, who was kidnapped by General Grievous. Anakin and Obi-Wan fight Count Dooku, and Anakin chops off both of Count Dooku's hands, right? And the Palpatine, who is the master of Count Dooku, says, "Good, Anakin, good," right? And he's like, "Kill him." And Anakin's like, "I shouldn't, because he's an unarmed person, right?" And he's like, "Kill him now. Do it," right? And he's just do it. So then he chops off the dude's head, right? In basically cold blood at that moment. And then Anakin's like, "I shouldn't have done that." And then, of course, the Palpatine, very smooth, says, "It is only natural. You know, he chopped off your hand. You know, it's human nature, whatever." Okay. So this is one, and then Obi-Wan at this point has gotten beat up by Dooku. So Anakin wants to save Obi-Wan. And Palpatine says, "Leave him. Well, you have to go." And Anakin says what? His faith will be the same as ours. His fate will be the same as ours, right? He doesn't want to leave without his master. Still very attached to Obi-Wan. Problem. Anakin starts having dreams again. This time about who?
Padme.
About Padme. About his wife. So now he's freaking out. Because what happened last time? It was about his mom, what happened to her? She died, right? Okay. So he goes to Master Yoda to sit down with him one-on-one consultation. And he says, he asks him, "What's going on? Is I'm having dreams? Someone close to me?" And he says, "Yes." And then he said, "What do I do?" Yoda says, "Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. Otherwise, you go to the dark side." Imam Ibn Hazm, who was a great scholar from Al-Andalus, Muslim Spain if you like, once said, "You detach yourself from everything in this world, because it'll either leave you or you will leave it and someone else will take it after you die." Right? That's the mentality. So, Palpatine, again, is pumping up Anakin. "You should be on the Jedi Council. I have nominated you." Right? Anakin is still a Padawan. He's not even a Jedi Master yet. And they want to put him on the Jedi Council. So he goes and they say, "We'll put you on the Jedi Council. That's fine. But you're not going to be a Jedi Master." So how does Anakin feel about this? How does he feel?
Probably not happy.
He's not happy about that. He thinks it's, oh, excuse me, what? I'm supposed to be, this superhero Jedi. And the reason why they said, okay, you can be on the council, is they want him to spy on Palpatine. All right? But Anakin doesn't like spying on. Palpatine asked Anakin to come to a private setting. And he says, I think the Jedi Council want control of the Republic. Palpatine figured out that they want Anakin to spy on him. He's setting the whole thing up. And then Palpatine senses Anakin doesn't like this fact that he has to spy, right? And he starts exploiting it. So these people are making you spy on me. So obviously they're not good people, right? He's planting these seeds into his head. And then the Palpatine starts selling the Sith, dark side. He says the Sith and the Jedi are more in common. Very a lot in common, And then Anakin says the Sith think inward about themselves. The Jedi are selfless. They think about others. Then Palpatine tells the story, which I think this is probably the climax. This is where the game changes. He says, do you know the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise? It's a Sith legend. He's a Darth Lord. He was so powerful and so wise, he could use the Force to influence midichlorians. He could keep the ones he cared about from dying. Boom. And then Anakin says, is it possible to learn this power? And Palpatine says, what does he say? Remember? Not from a Jedi. Right? And meanwhile, Obi-Wan, Anakin's master, is fighting this robot, General Grievous, and he's out far away. Palpatine again talks to Anakin, and he says, tells him he's a Sith Lord. He is the one that everyone's looking for. And he says, only through me can you save your wife. We work together and we'll save her. But he's basically telling him, you have to have me, otherwise you're going to lose her. Anakin goes home, tells Mace Windu, right? The one who said, you can't be on the Jedi Council. The one in the beginning was like, you can't be a Jedi. He tells him that Palpatine is Sith Lord. And Mace tells Anakin, stay at home. You have a lot of confusion inside of you. You need to stay at home right now. So Palpatine is, through the Force, communicating, like Skype, right? And he's just saying, hey, if the Jedi kill me, you're not going to be able to save your wife. So Anakin's like, I can't take it anymore. So then he goes and he gets into the car, or the ship, whatever they have, and then he goes and he meets Mace Windu. And Mace goes to meet Palpatine with 3 other Jedis. So it's 3 Jedis and Mace. So 4 Jedis go to confront the Emperor about this whole Sith thing. Palpatine kills 3 Jedis in like 6 seconds. Done. So it's just Mace and Palpatine. Mace is about to beat Palpatine. Anakin comes, and what does he do?
Push him out the window, right?
Yeah, this is epic scene. Come on, y'all remember the scene? This is like amazing. So like
He chops off his hand.
he chops off his hand, right? And the saber goes, and then then the Palpatine electrocutes him and throws him out. So that's why Palpatine's face is all messed up, because the fight with Mace. And then Anakin says, I will do whatever you say. Just help me save her. I can't live without her. So then he becomes Darth Vader. So the Emperor says, good, right, rise. And he sends Vader to kill all the Jedi. In the temple, even the children, younglings, everybody. And then all the clones, Attack of the Clones, he programs them to kill Jedi too. So they turn, start killing the Jedi. So it's an all-out onslaught. So now there's only 2 Jedi left. Who are 2 Jedi left?
Obi-Wan.
And Yoda.
Obi-Wan and Yoda. That's it. That's all we have left. There's a whole council and throughout the universe, whatever, galaxy. They're all gone. There's 2 left. Yoda knows it was Anakin who killed all the Jedi. Obi-Wan doesn't know yet. So then he watches the videotape, basically. And he sees that Anakin was the one who killed all the children. Anakin was the one who... And this is like his apprentice, right? He's been teaching him since he was this little kid, 8-year-old kid. And he's just become now the apprentice of Darth Sidious, of the Emperor. The Emperor And now I think he's a chancellor. He goes to the Senate and he says, we need to have an empire. The Jedi tried to kill me, so now it's all going to be an empire. I'll be the emperor, and I'll restore peace in the galaxy. Okay. Now, the problem is Obi-Wan has to fight Anakin. Because Yoda says, you can't fight Palpatine. We have to destroy the Sith. But Obi-Wan's like, I can't fight Anakin. The relationship is too close. I can't do that. And so you have to. Obi-Wan goes to who now? Who does he talk to about the situation? He talks to Padme, right? And he tells her that what basically Anakin has done. And she doesn't believe it. But then eventually she comes around, talks to Anakin, and Obi-Wan confronts Anakin, but first Padme does. And she says, I've heard you've joined the dark side, that you're killing children, you kill children. What's wrong with you? And he said, I'm doing it all for you. We have an empire now. We don't have to go anywhere. We can rule here by ourselves. And she says, I can't join you. Then he starts choking her. It starts now. He's liar, starts choking her. And then she doesn't die, but she faints. She falls down. And then Obi-Wan and Anakin start talking. And he's trying to convince him, what you're doing is wrong. The Emperor is evil. Wake up. And he thinks, in my opinion, the Jedi are evil. And even on the commentary on Star Wars, they say that even Anakin's method of fighting becomes more aggressive once he joins the dark side. Okay, so eventually, Obi-Wan beats Anakin. Anakin's coming up and chops off his legs, and then he starts catching on fire. And Obi-Wan says, you were my brother. I loved you. You were the chosen one. And Anakin says, I hate you. And he starts burning, right? And that hate, it's very important to get rid of it. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said that it is not permissible for a Muslim to have estranged relations with his brother beyond 3 days. So it's very important that if you have a problem with someone that you correct that as soon as possible, because it could get worse and worse and worse. The Emperor, meanwhile, saves Anakin from burning in the lava, and he puts him into Darth Vader armor. His wife is giving birth to twins, Luke and Leia. And she dies in childbirth anyways, but she doesn't die because of physical illness. She lost the will to live. So eventually what happened was that the reason why she died was because he joined the dark side. And she just, it was too much for her to handle. So Luke goes to Tatooine with his basically step uncle and step aunt, and Leia goes to a government official and becomes Princess Leia. All right, episode 4. Are we still here? We're still here? Okay, episode 4. The Jedi are what? Jedi are extinct, except for who?
Endangered.
Who's left? Yoda.
Obi-Wan.
Okay, so Yoda ran away. He went to the Dagobah system. I don't know, he lost face what the problem was. He just kind of ran away. So he's hiding there in exile. Obi-Wan is looking after Luke on Tatooine. Okay, he's just kind of sitting there getting old, looking after them. And Leia is now a princess. She's Princess Leia. She's stolen the plans of an ultimate weapon called the Death Star. Okay, now the older ones are coming. Yeah, the older movies are coming in. Okay. So now, Death Star. She sends a message out to Obi-Wan Kenobi. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope, right? And then eventually what happens is Luke gets a hold of R2-D2, right? And then he's like, I wonder if he means old Ben Kenobi, because Ben Kenobi is the AKA for Obi-Wan Kenobi. And his aunt and uncle are like, no, that guy's a crazy wizard. Stay away from him. But he's a teenager. What does he do? He goes anyway. So then he goes and he meets Obi-Wan, shows him the message. Obi-Wan says, I'm too old for this. You need to become a Jedi. And he's like, what are you talking about? And then he tells him, your father was a Jedi and all these things. Meanwhile, Darth Vader, who's Luke's father, doesn't know about Luke, has some serious PTSD, right? I mean, he's really traumatic. He has no remorse for evil. You know, there is a hadith from the Prophet Muhammad, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, said that when you sin, there's like a black dot on your heart. And then the more you sin, the bigger that blackness goes over the heart, right? And that's very apparent, like in Vader's, like he's just choking people through television screens, right? he's just doing this, and then they're gone. And in person, it's just he has no remorse for anything. Now C-3PO, he says, thank the maker. This oil bath is going to feel so good, because he's like a robot, golden robot guy, if you don't remember, right? And so when we Muslims, when we thank God, we say, what do we say? Alhamdulillah, which means all praise and thanks is to God. But his maker is Anakin. So it's not really like God. But just throwing it in there. All right. So you notice that Luke lives a life in the desert without much luxuries, which I feel is part of his training, right? The shepherd kind of mentality, being out in the desert. So when Luke is with Obi-Wan, his aunt and uncle get burnt by the Empire. And so Luke's like, there's nothing for me now here. I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father. And this is the quest of the student of Islamic knowledge, who would leave his or her family to study and prepare and build his or herself. Now, Luke is going to go with Obi-Wan and become a Jedi. Yeah. So they go to the bar, and in the bar, the bartender says, we don't serve your kind here. To the droids, because they're droids, right? Like robots. In Islam, like racism is forbidden. And the Prophet Muhammad, in his last sermon, said that no Arab is greater than a non-Arab, right? So he wanted to make sure when he was leaving that he instilled that into the people. Now, Greedo is Jabba the Hutt's pigeon. Jabba's this gangster, big, huge gangster. I can't explain it really. Maybe it's a marshmallow kind of. What's up?
It's like a slug.
Like a slug, yeah, like a slug. And he wants money from Han Solo, right? Han Solo stole something, some drama went down, and so now he owes Jabba money. Princess Leia, is being kidnapped right now being kidnapped by Vader, who doesn't know that she's actually his daughter. He has no idea. When Princess Leia's planet is destroyed by the Empire, Obi-Wan felt a great disturbance in the Force, like Yoda felt in Episode 3. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said, believers are like a body. When one part of the body is hurt, the other is hurt too, right? If the eye is sore, the whole body aches. And if the head aches, the whole body aches, right? That's the idea. Now Han Solo, he's the pilot of the Millennium Falcon, right? It's a ship. And he doesn't care about rescuing the princess. All he wants is the money, because he wants to save his neck, right? And the Quran tells us that the love of wealth is intense. Now, Darth Vader, after fighting Obi-Wan, he meets him again. It's a rematch, right? Obi-Wan versus Darth Vader, except they're like 60 or 70 years old. So it's not really entertaining as the other fight was. And what happens is, what does Obi-Wan do at the end of the fight?
Disappears.
Yeah, but before that, what does he do?
Kind of stands still.
He kind of stands still, right? He's not really fighting, right? And you find out why later on, why he does that. But so then Vader strikes him, but then he disappears. And then Luke's going crazy, Ben, and Obi-Wan says, run, Luke. And then so he goes and he runs, and then they run away. And Vader says, this will be a day to be remembered. It's seen the end of Kenobi, it'll be the end of the rebellion, right? And then in the Quran, we know that we don't say something without saying what about the future? What do we say? Inshallah, right? God willing. So it's something we are kind of trained to do. If you take Arabic class at Trinity, you also learn that as well, right? So now, Luke is joining the rebellion. He's on board. He's becoming a Jedi. He hops into this little ship, and then he's going to go and try to blow up a Death Star with one, missile or missiles. And Obi-Wan talks to him again and says, use the Force, Luke, And Luke's like, no, I'm going to use my little goggles over here, trying to use the Force right now. And he says, no, you're going to use it. Trust in the Force. So he takes off the goggles, and then he uses, the Force, and he goes into the Death Star and explodes. There's a big party, celebration, yada, yada. Episode 5. Empire Strikes Back. The Empire is who? Making sure you are still with me. Empire is who? Who is in charge of the Empire? Darth Sidious, right? AKA Palpatine, and who else?
Darth Vader.
Okay, he's second in command, right? All right. Now, Vader is pumping the issue like it's your destiny. He is going crazy trying to find Anakin. Why? Why is he finding? Why do you want to find it? Why? Find Luke. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Find Luke. Why find Luke? Why does he care about Luke?
Because Luke has the Force.
It's his son, people. Come on, yeah, it's his son, right? So he wants to find his son. He has the Force, all that kind of stuff, right? So Anakin is the one who's supposed to bring balance to the Force. That's like his mission. But no one believes it anymore because of what he's become. Han Solo and Leia have this romantic thing going on back and forth. Okay? Side note. But you see how Han Solo changes. Before, he was all about the money and saving his life. But then he went to go help Luke as well. Now, Obi-Wan comes to Luke in vision and voice and tells him, where do you need to go? Where does he say to go?
Dagobah system.
Oh man, that's good. The Dagobah system, right? And he says, because there is somebody there, and who's there? Yoda. He's going to complete the training. Okay. So now Vader is running around. I gotta find Skywalker. Gotta stop the rebellion. Luke is going to go to Yoda and learn how to become a full-fledged Jedi. Now, Yoda, how does he look? What does he look like?
Green.
He's green. Is he big, small?
Leprechaun.
He's tiny, right? So if you wanted to fight somebody, you probably want to fight him by appearance, right? It's like, yeah, I'm not this one, you know. It's right, he's old. He's not too big. It's all right. So when Luke meets him, Yoda doesn't tell him that he's Yoda, right? And only by what he shows him, Luke learns about this. And Islamic history and in today, there are people that look pious. They look like Moses from Ten Commandment movies or something, you know. But inside, their character is horrible. And the people that don't look religious, but on the inside, their character is wonderful, right? So be very careful when you make judgments about people and based on their exterior appearances. So now we have the Emperor. They don't show him part 4. Part 5 they show him. And then Vader says, "What is thy bidding, my master?" Right? And the Emperor is like, "There's a great disturbance in the Force." And Vader is like, "I have felt it." And the Emperor is like, "The offspring of Anakin." You know, the Emperor is like, "Offspring of Anakin, search your feelings. He could destroy us." And Vader is like, "He's just a boy." Because he has his own agenda, right? He says, "Don't kill my own son. What's wrong with you?" You know? And the Emperor is like, "The Force is strong with him. If he cannot become a Jedi. The son of Skywalker, right? Ibn Skywalker cannot become a Jedi, right?" And then Vader twists it again, and he says, "If you could be turned to the dark side," right? Emperor's like, yes, right? "Can it be done?" And Vader says, "He will join us or die," right? And so this is like a big deception going on. They're both playing each other. Vader is saying, if I get Luke, we're going to beat you up, and we're going to rule the galaxy as father and son. And the Emperor is saying, if we get Luke, he's going to kill you, Vader. He's my new apprentice. So both of them are trying to play each other, right? And it's like a big deception. Islam we call it ghar, which is it's a deception, and it's a danger, right? Now, Luke wants to go fight Vader, and they're like, whoa, if you fight Vader, you're gonna be in deep trouble. And then Luke wants to save his friends. And then Yoda says, "For 800 years I trained Jedi." How do you argue with that? He says, "For 800 years I trained Jedi." It's a deep commitment, most serious mind. This one, meaning Luke, I have watched all his life. You craving adventure, excitement. And Obi-Wan keeps defending him. So was I, if you remember, right? But he does it with etiquette. He doesn't say, "Yoda, you old fool, your time is up, whatever, just you got this disease." He says, "Master Yoda," and talks to him, "So was I, if you remember." So it's a very nice way of talking to his sheikh, right? His master. Now, God says in the Quran that in one verse that He equates angels, the students of knowledge, with level of angels, right? So that's an etiquette and adab that we have when we talk to people of knowledge. Now, Luke has to start training. So he puts Yoda on his back, has to move a ship from the swamp. Can't really do it. And then he goes to the cave. Who does he find in the cave? He finds Darth Vader, right? His dad. And, they get into altercation. And then he sees Vader's head, right? And whose face is behind the helmet?
His.
Who's his?
Luke's.
Luke's face, right? So this is something to keep in mind. All right. Luke tries to move the ship. He can't do it. He says it's impossible. Yoda does it. And Luke says, I can't believe it. And then Yoda says, that is why you fail. Right? And so these signs are very important. Time and time again, prophets have come and shown signs from God to the people. And God constantly reminds them of these signs in the Quran. Moses having a staff that turned into a snake, having a glowing hand, the plagues that came down, Jesus bringing dead people back to life. Muhammad could cause the moon to split. These are all from God, right? But then some people believe and some don't believe, right? And Islamically, if you see that sign and you still reject and you know it's the truth, then it's a failure in Islam, right? So Yoda is teaching him control, teaching him to control what's going on inside of him. Control is very important for a Muslim, as we talked about earlier, following that code of controlling your desires. God says in the Quran, يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. O you have believed, decreed upon you is fasting, as it was decreed upon those before you, so that you may become not hungry, not thirsty, become pious, right? Aware of God. Now, we're going to skip to the near end of the movie again. Luke and Vader, confrontation, right? Luke and Vader fighting. At first, Vader is just playing with him, one hand, hand on my back, just like this, I'll show you, son, what's up? Son, actually, he knows his son. And then, eventually, Luke keeps fighting back. And then Vader gets more intense. Luke gets a couple of hits in, but loses. And then Vader reveals it. And he says, Obi-Wan never told you the truth about your father. And Luke says, he told me enough. He told me you killed him. He's really emotional. And he says, no, I am your father. And he's like, no. And he gets really upset, and he's like, can't be, that's impossible. He's just going crazy. And he says, search your feelings. You know it to be true, right? And now, you see, what Vader did, he told the truth to Luke. But what did Obi-Wan do? He told him something else. He told him that, Vader killed your father, right? And so then Luke is thinking, Ben, why didn't you tell me? Ben, why didn't you tell me? And this is some serious traumatic stress disorder. You're like a Jedi in training, and then you're fighting against the second biggest villain in the entire empire, and that's your dad, dude. Breaking news, right? So then Vader talks to him again, the Skype Force thing, right? And he says, Luke. And Luke says, Father. And he says, Luke, it is your destiny. This is what you're going to end up, right? And that relationship, father and son, can be good, can be bad, but it's always complicated, right? So now, episode 6, the last one. We're still here?
6.
Okay, all right. Han Solo's in trouble because he's smuggled, and Jabba's still after him. He's in carbonite. He's frozen, right? So he's got frozen in carbonite. So Luke and the whole crew come to save Han Solo. All right. Luke, since part 5, has had a lot of swag, right? And he's walking around like he's the biggest Jedi. He's going to become. And who was like that as well in the Star Wars series? Anakin. Who was his what? His father. So everybody has a red flag. This is like red flag zone. Oh no, here we go again. Yoda's freaking out. No. Relax. And Obi-Wan's like, no. Everyone's like, no. Right? They need like a Star Wars therapist or something to fix everybody's problems. But everyone's going crazy. All right. So now they free Han Solo. He says, and Chewbacca, who's this furry thing, right? He starts talking. I can't do the thing really well, but he starts talking to him like that, and then he tells Han that Luke's become a Jedi now. Okay, all right, and he's like, a Jedi? Everybody's having delusions of grandeur now. What's going on? I'm just gone for a few minutes. But then Luke starts doing things. In part 5, he talks trash to Vader while getting beat up. In part 6, he talks trash to Jabba the Hutt. He says that's the last mistake you'll ever make. And in certain instances, it's good to have some confidence in certain types of situations. He tells Jabba, this is your last chance, free us or die. And eventually they do. Leia ends up killing Jabba, and she shows signs of potentially becoming a Jedi herself in the future. She communicates with Luke, she shoots down motorbikes, teams up with the Ewoks, little furry things. If you're old like me, you know what the Ewoks are. So now the Emperor doesn't realize a very, very important point. What's that point? Think about it for a minute. What's the point about the Emperor doesn't realize about Vader and yeah?
Father's love for son.
The same thing that brought Anakin to the dark side. He loved his family, right? And now he doesn't realize how much that's going to affect the situation. So the Emperor's been playing this whole thing out for a very long time. And now it's all come true from part 6 movies. Luke goes back to who to get training? He goes to Yoda, right? And the Emperor arrives in person with Vader. First time we see him in person in the movie series. In the old trilogy. And he says, everything is proceeding as I have foreseen. Right? But he didn't say inshallah as well. Now, Yoda, anger, fear, aggression, dark side. Remember these, right? Once you start down the dark side, forever will it dominate your destiny. Do not underestimate the powers of the Emperor, or suffer your father's fate you will. So they're really paranoid. They're like, Luke, we don't want to lose you like I lost your father. And then Yoda is saying, don't underestimate how powerful the Emperor is. He's good at what he does. There's an admiral there, and I didn't catch this until recently. His name's Admiral Akbar, right? And so he's the one. When Muslims we say God is great, we say Allahu Akbar, right? God is greater. Just a quick note. So I also noticed how many of the Imperial troops had a British accent. Did y'all notice that? They're all British. Empire, British, I don't know, I'm just saying. And the rebels had an American accent, I'm just saying, right? Okay. So now, so Luke slowly becomes the leader of this rebellion. He saves Han, he handles the Ewok situation, and he meets his father again. And he gives himself up, meets his father. And he says, Father, let go of your hate. There's good in you, I see it. And when his wife was dying, Padme was dying, she told Obi-Wan, there's still good in him. There's still good in him, meaning Anakin, Darth Vader. So, hate is a dark side. To keep grudges, you have to conquer those. Luke meets the Emperor, and he meets Vader, right? And he tells the Emperor, your overconfidence is your weakness. And the Emperor says, your faith in your friends is yours. These are one of the final scenes now. So you have the Emperor who's raised Anakin up to be Darth Vader. You have Luke, the son, who wants to pull his father back to the non-dark side, right? And the Emperor keeps tempting Luke, strike me down. I am unarmed, right? And then Luke is trying to fight it. And he says, your friends they're going to be gone. Our operation is fully operational. We're going to destroy your friends. And then Luke tries to strike the Emperor, and then who stops him? Vader stops him. And they start fighting again. So Luke and Vader are fighting. And then Luke kind of gets scared a little bit and runs away, okay? But then, remember the Skype thing they can do? We can read minds and sense feelings, stuff like that? So then Darth Vader says, you have a sister. Your thoughts betray you. If you will not turn to the dark side, perhaps she will. And then Luke goes crazy, and he says, never! And he starts getting his lightsaber, he starts going off on Vader, and just beating him. And then he's about to just knock him, and then Palpatine's like, good. Now strike him down, take your father's place by my side, And then Luke says, never. I'll never join you. And he throws his lightsaber. Very stupid move. He throws his lightsaber, and then the Emperor starts electrocuting Luke. And Luke says, I am a Jedi, like my father before me. Yeah. And then the Emperor's like, so be it, Jedi. And he starts electrocuting him. And Luke is like, Father, help me, please, help me, please. And Vader's like looking back, looking at Luke, looking at the Emperor, looking at Luke, looking at the Emperor. And then he finally picks up the Emperor. What does he do? Throws him in the reactor, right? To that dark abyss. But then as he's picking him up, he's getting electrocuted himself, right? So Darth Vader gets a pretty bad beating. Because first his son beats him up, which is embarrassing. And then he gets shocked. So he's pretty messed up right now. So even his like breathing, it's not like, it's like, it's a little off, right? So, then he tells his son, he says, take my helmet off. I want to see with my own eyes for once, my natural eyes. And Luke says, but you'll die. And then he says, nothing can prevent that now. And so he takes off his thing and he says, tell your sister you were right. They were still good in me, basically. Tell your sister that you were right. So Luke takes Vader, they hop into the ship, and they go to the party. Okay? There's a party going on now because the Empire is destroyed, right? The Emperor, Vader are both gone. The Empire is destroyed. Big party, galaxy, everyone's having a great time. They burn Vader's body, I believe. And they do, right? Yeah.
Like Qui-Gon.
Yeah, like they did with Qui-Gon, right? And then Yoda appears, Obi-Wan appears, and then who else appears? Anakin appears in his good state, right? And that's the end of Star Wars and Islam. Any questions? Yeah. Thank you.
I got a question. Any parallels to lightsaber?
I tried.
Wasn't there something in, and I could be completely wrong, but wasn't there something in the Quran where it said angels had weapons made of light?
Hmm.
Have you heard that?
Angels have weapons made of light. Yeah, that they're made of light themselves, right? Of the Nur. So that's a good parallel. I was gonna go with the Quran at some point, but then I was like, it's a little too dangerous. I'm not gonna go there. I'm not gonna go compare Quran to a lightsaber. So, but yeah, that's something to think about.
Didn't the staff of Moses have more in it?
His hand did, at least, because God told him to put your hand into your chest and then take it out, and then that was like a sign because it was lit up with light.
But didn't
The staff may have. I just don't recall. I know it turned into a snake. I don't remember if it turned into light or not.